What's going on, Summoners? I'm Kangas, and in this quick video, I'm running you through the hot news about the upcoming changes to SONA. These changes are still tentative and could get changed or pulled altogether, but I think that we can all agree at the moment, SONA doesn't feel that satisfying to play, so she's definitely due for a soft rework. Anyway, hit that sub button, and let's get into it. So first off, let's talk about the current problems with SONA. I think we can all agree that it's never fun playing with restrictions to your champ. They're sometimes necessary, which is why SONA has gotten to this point in the first place, but the ideal situation is when they can be avoided. Previously, SONA was too powerful and even ended up becoming a dominant solo laner, and to get around that, she has many restrictions now. The primary one being her mana costs are obscene without any allies nearby. At the moment, all three of her abilities refund 30 mana if they target an ally in addition to herself. With that one, you have no choice but to eat that entire cost, which considering her W is 105 at level 1, that's pretty intense. By the way, that's 5 more mana than Blitzcrank's hook, so just think about that for a second. To paraphrase the words of Riot Jag, instead of rewarding players for playing with an ally, they're being punished for not playing with one. At the end of the day, that's the biggest issue, but there's also problems with her current itemization, which is exactly where Riot has decided to look into her. That said, let's talk about the changes that are being tested right now. First, the whole mana restore mechanic on her abilities is going to be removed. Accordingly, the mana cost on all basic abilities is also going down. Also, her ultimate will no longer passively reduce the cooldown of her other abilities. This leaves the question of how do you incentivize players to stay away from solo lanes and continue playing her as a support. To balance around this, SONA is receiving power elsewhere, her passive. Her passive will take on scaling notes that her ultimate currently provides. Whenever SONA's abilities help an ally or hurt enemies, she passively gains permanent ability haste for those abilities. There is a cap to this, but once you reach it, you'll instead start stacking up AP. I'm kinda hit or miss on this approach, but I'm worried it can create a ton of frustration. We already have infinite scaling elsewhere with Nasus up top lane, Kindred in the jungle, Veigar mid, and Senna as a marksman. I think having a champion to help players realize their infinite scaling goals as a support, it's reasonable, but I hope that this doesn't become meta with all 5 of these champions on the same team, because things would definitely get out of hand. But having a diverse roster in a video game is great. It gives every player a chance to find something that fits their personal playstyle. Pushing SONA in this direction would also give her more of a unique identity. Ever since Seraphine's release, people have always been calling her SONA 2.0, but making changes like these creates a more clear distinction between the two. Rather than just choosing whichever one is better, you can pick one based on whether you're playing for a champion who performs consistently throughout the entire game, or one who's intended to make it to the late game. This change also makes playing with and against SONA a lot more interactive. While you could argue that, hey, this means SONA will end up OP, remember that the game receives patches every 2 weeks, so Riot can always work out the numbers, and ideally, she ends up being weaker early in the game and stronger later. Regardless, just like how you'd work to shut down a Nasus or a Veigar early, this change would put SONA's opponents on a similar timer. As a scaling hypercarry support of a team, you'd have to pay close attention to what's going on in the bottom lane. I also enjoy the implication that perhaps you could actually draft a team around her, and that for once, it might even make sense to have a support pick to be locked in later. You can just wait to see what the enemy team's composition looks like and then draft SONA to counter. Notice they picked a farming jungler, or that they don't have the right picks to apply pressure on you? Well, you can punish their poor draft with a SONA pick to suddenly force your opponent to end the game fast. This isn't necessarily the most fun thing to play against, especially if you find it difficult to finish games. But pushing SONA in this direction will force players to get better at learning how to end games fast, or the exact opposite, to stall them out. It all depends on which team SONA is on. At the end of the day, SONA is an aura bot. She's rather fragile, and a single thresh hook or Leona ult can spell the end for her. This part shouldn't change, that's simply how she is by design. It should make sense that if you don't punish her or take advantage of her early game fragility, that you should regret it later in the game. So, those are the potential changes to SONA. Let me know your thoughts about the changes in the comments down below, and also check out the description for a link to join our Discord so that you can chat about it with our community. Remember to like the video, sub to the channel, but most importantly, best of luck on the Rift. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.